Hi everybody, it's lovely to have you with me. Today I'm going to be working on this Hahnemühle watercolour block. This is the A4 size and you'll see why in a minute. You will see now that I've actually drawn some shapes on here just in pencil using an old-fashioned compass and pencil and just sort of interlocking some of the shapes and overlapping them. Because we're actually going to use the crackle paste that we've used before. If you want to check out the way to use it, have a look at my other videos. So here we are, I've applied it into some of the shapes and now I've let it dry, and this is what we've got the next day. Nice little interesting crackles and texture. So the first thing I'm going to do is use some masking fluid. This is actually a Daniel Smith masking fluid, and I'm just going to draw some really loose and fluid sort of plant shapes, flower stems, little twirls, leaves, whatever you want to think of, just so that we've got something interesting. And now you can see when the masking fluid has dried, it's got a sort of strange yellow colour. That's how you know that it's dried. So the first thing I'm going to do is going into this lovely elliptical shape here. I'm just going to wet it with clean tap water, and then I'm going to go in with this lovely raw Sienna acrylic ink, one of my favourite shades. It's a really beautiful golden yellow. I'm just spreading it around into that wet area, and I'm just going to use the brush just to pull out that little bit of a bubble and soften along that edge. A flat brush is great for this because you can get along those lines really easily. Now I'm putting in a light red, which is paint, and just spraying it with water, so I can now drop in some of this delicious sap green acrylic ink. So this is going to be a mixture of using paints and inks, which should come out with some interesting results for us. You can see how it's run into those cracks in the crackle paste. Really, really interesting sort of finish to it. If I did nothing else, it would actually look quite good. So pulling it around with the silicone spatula, and I'm going to blend it in with that little bit of light red as well to give it a little bit of depth and warmth. And I've got a shape over this side, so again I'm just going to wet it with clean water and drop in some more of that lovely sap green, and this time I'm going to use some metallic gold ink as well. And I'm going to mix the two together using this little tiny palette knife here, just so that I've got the sort of mixture that I want. And now I'm going to use that edge and pull some of that gold and green out, making little stems as I go. It's very easy, and the paper is tough enough to take it. I'm going to go in with some more of that raw sienna to add some more depth. Now I'm going to take some of that green out. It's actually staying a little heavier, so that's fine. I've wet it down and I'm just going to take it out. And I'm just going to wet this area here, and I'm going to put some more of that lovely yellow in. We've got a bit of an arc drawn there, so I'll follow that arc a little bit, but I want to really, really soften this down. So I'm going to use spray water, and I'm just going to tip it and just absorb some as it runs so that it gets thinner and thinner towards the bottom of that shape. And then I'm going to go in with some Prussian blue while it's still wet, because I don't mind a green shade happening here, with a little bit of titanium white, and blend that into that area. So we've got a little bit more interest of blue going on. And as you can see, using the spatula there to pull it into the crackles, you can see the crackles, it's really good. And this is just the neat Prussian blue, so there's no white with this. I want to add a little depth and a little bit of darkness here. So as we've used the blue, that's what I'm going to use there. And now I'm just going to wet down there and put some dark green. I'm just sort of dotting it into that water that we just put, but I really want to soften it and blend it in. So again, I'm going in with the flat brush and using water just to soften. And I'm going to put some of that light red in there. It looks sort of orangey on the screen, for which I apologise, but it is actually a very light red colour. And you really blend that in. It's already, when I look at it sort of from a distance, looking like planets almost. So it'll be interesting how it turns out. I had an idea in my head, but I'm never really sure. So again, balancing that area with a little bit more of the light red. And now I want to add in a little bit more depth down at this bottom here. So I've put in a raw umber, and this is the ink which I've then sprayed So we can see it moving. It's just brilliant how it goes into those cracks. It's actually burnt umber, I do apologise. I'll put all the colours in the description as usual, but can you see how it's run into the cracks and made a really interesting effects? Now balancing that blue, I'm going to go in that top left hand shape. I don't really know what you'd call that. It looks like a bit like a horn, and that's balanced the blue a little. And now it's a question of adding as much depth and darkness that I want, moving that around. You could use a brush if you want, but the spatula covers the areas quite quickly and quite easily. And don't forget you can blend in with white. Titanium white really softens it down. Take that blue across because that shape looks a little bit lost at the moment. Now adding a little bit of depth, I'm going to take it right down the side of that, I'll plan it for want of a better word. And then across to this left hand side, I just want to make a mix of the Prussian blue and the yellow. So I know that the colours are there that we've already used, and filling in that other planet and then using the palette knife to pull the ink across. Again in with that beautiful gold, the raw sienna. And now while it's wet, I'm actually sprinkling in some coarse sea salt. Fine is no good, it has to be the coarse. And we'll just leave that to dry and do its thing because it'll be an interesting effect, and I'll show you when it's dry. So just going in with that flat brush, adding in little areas that I want to highlight, a little bit up there, just harmonising your whole picture. You're only using the same colours, we're not continually introducing colours, so we know that they're all going to work. And I'm going to soften that burnt umber, sorry, I always get that muddled up. Now I want to really soften that edge down a little, so I'm going in with some white, and then I'm adding some of that light red mixed with the white, so it's almost a pinky colour. And now under these shapes where we've got the masking fluid, this is actually still the acrylic paint, but I've wet it quite a lot, so it's actually working a little bit like watercolours. I'm going to do a video on this technique because you can use acrylics quite well in a similar style to watercolours, for those of you who aren't aware of that. So that's really softened it down, and I'm going to blend it right the way out. So in the same sort of way, I'm actually going to add some of the green into just beneath this stem, just so that when we take off the masking fluid, we can actually see the lines of that. So again, just a little colour here and there, but really, really soften it out. And again, little areas down there, just adding the colour in and then washing it out with the clean water. Now I'm adding in a little bit of white paint just with the palette knife, just grazing it over that area just to soften that blue down, just blend it in a little bit. I don't want it looking too stark. Okay, so here we are, next stage, things are dry, and as you can see I've removed the salt from where we put it on this acrylic ink, and it's left some really interesting sort of designs, and I've softened some of these edges down that I wasn't happy with, and I've just added in a few more little bits of the greens, little twigs, little stems, and it's looking really effective. The masking fluid has left some lovely white shapes. I'm not sure about this area here. I'm actually going to paint that in with some of the gold acrylic ink. It just looks a little bit stark, a little bit clumsy, and a little bit thicker than I want. So that looks a lot better. And I'm also going to put some of that lovely gold at the edge here as well, just against that blue, which I've really softened down, just to give a little definition and a little bit of shimmer. And I'm going to start adding some onto the tops of these little leaves, just giving suggestions of, well, flowers, shapes of flowers. They're not any particular type, they're just a little abstract twiddle, and they just add some interest. And now here where we put that blue, we're going to put some more little bits of highlight on the top. That flower shows up really nicely. Now this top right hand corner, it's been bugging me a little bit. I actually put the paste on without having put the crackle medium underneath it, so it hasn't actually crackled. So that was my mistake. I lost track of where I put it. So I'm going to go in with one of my favourite inks now. This is the burnt sienna, and I've just wetted that area and put the ink on, sprayed it. So I'm just going to let it dry, dab a little bit off because it's actually spread a little bit further than I want and it's creating a hard edge. So I'm going to take that out, let it do its thing. But while it's drying, I'm going to add some in different places on this planet area here. And it's just really, it is so much my favourite colour. It's warm, but it has a depth to it as well. It just really gives a pop. Red would be too harsh and doesn't go with the other colours that we've used, but this has just enough warmth and interest to really make a difference. So I'm pulling it down and I'm pulling it up a little bit, and I'm using it to tidy that edge. And I'm really pleased with this, and because of that I'm actually going to add some here. I know we just put the gold in, but what will happen is it will just mix with the gold and just give it a little coppery shimmer, and that's finished that corner lovely. And I'm going to add some in here as well, only tiny bits. This is using a very fine rigger or liner brush just to add in the ink. It works so well with a liner brush because it's already liquid, and you can add it in tiny little places which don't look much but makes quite a big difference to the final impact. So wherever you feel just needs a little warmth and a little depth. And I've just added some more blue here. This is the point at which is really up to you. It's about adding in the details, how much you want to put in without overdoing it. And that's the hardest part. So we'll deepen that little bit of blue under there. I'm really pleased with how that daisy's worked. It's really pretty and it stands out in the blue. So the more we put depth underneath it, the more the pale colour will stand out. Cannot have the lights without the darks. And then what we'll do is actually go in with a wet brush and just soften that down like we did before, just to take the harshness out of it. Very pretty. That will do nicely. So let's put a little bit of blue detail over this side. We've got a lot of the blue on the right hand of this painting, so we'll put a little bit over here just to continue the theme. And I'm literally just using a little bit of spilt gold ink here, mixed with the blue to make little bobs on some branches that just look like little random buds. But it'll bring the colours together. This is what we're after. And again, in other places where those colours are lacking, you can add them in. And here we have what I think is the final piece. As you can see, I've actually grazed some metallic paints over the top with a palette knife, added a little bit more life, little bits of details and twigs which you can add in. I hope that this will inspire you to have a go, and that you don't have to just use straight lines with the abstracts. You can actually use circular motions, semicircles, all sorts of edges. And what I'm going to do now is play about with having it mounted. Because it's on paper, I can put it in a frame. So I'm going to play about, move it to different areas, see which I like the best. That's the beauty of being able to do this. I always keep a spare mount so that I can do that. And I hope that you will enjoy doing one of your own, and that you'll join me for the next video about loose painting with acrylic inks and paints. Many thanks for watching. Keep painting. Bye bye.